Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of Season 11, Round 3 of VSR Phoenix. As always, I am Regan Clark. You join us here at the home of the Indianapolis 500 here, part of the Motorsports Triple Crown, hallowed ground then for American motorsports right here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course layout. Founded in 1909, it's the world's second ever dedicated motor racing course after Brooklands 2 years before in 1907. And contrary to what the turn count would believe, there is not 17 turns, is as a matter of fact 15 turns and 2.5 miles of FIA Grade 1. We're on board at the moment with Ian Oates in the trailing end of free practice today. And taking a look into the session regulations at large, looking on with the changes for round 3 of the championship. The one-shot qualifying system we saw last week in Snetterton has been disbanded. A 20-minute session is around the corner here for qualifying and no category-based time frame, so we will be seeing an open session for today's race. The 75 minutes of racing as opposed to the 60 we saw the week before, with a mandatory pit stop coming up for both fuel and tyres. Quali bands to serve then for round 3 of the championship. Andres Tichavari, Kevin Perez, Parvis Agaverdi and Matthias Gonalons all missing out in qualifying due to infractions over the course of last week's qualifying session. As we take a look in towards the last 3 or so minutes here of free practice, reminding ourselves of where we stand after round 2 of the championship in Snetterton for the championship standings. Starting things off in the platinum tier, Carlos Disch leads the charge ahead of Will Friedman, with David Hollop making 3rd place, Fake Galaxy 4th, Dominic Dvorak in 5th, Tyler Vermack in 6th, Kieran Rod 7th and Cass Van Veltzen in 8th place. Looking at the gold standings, it's a joint first here and a razor-thin top 3 to follow, with Tom Barlow and Ian Oates level on points here. We're on board with the number 6, currently a joint first in the championship now, only 2 points behind them. Marking out the back of that top 3 is Lee Evans. We see Mr. Bernie, Jilali Busaraj, Solomon Bosworth and Chris Davies all in the charts there. On to silver, we still have fairly close things on the back end of the podium. 10 points between Callum Gray and Andres Tichavari, but a dominant lead secured so far for Antonio Angeletta. 90 points after the second round of the championship, with Nicholas Mouzas, who originally led after round 1, now relegated to 4th place. Robert Ogan in 5th, Sean McNally 6th, joint 7th between Pumarol and Gonalons, with Lewis Perslow behind in 9th. Taking a look at the bronze standings then, just before we get into the topic of the qualifying session, with BOP and quali predictions to follow then. Taking a look here with bronze, it is very close at the front there. Mantas Mantinho versus Ryan Castle, 6 points between the pair as they make their way into round 3 of the championship. Still only about just past a 5th of the way through this season so far. With Peter Mikolas 3rd place, Wayne Trigg 4th, Timo in 5th, Parvis Agaverdi, set to miss out qualifying today, is in 6th place. So with about a minute and a half left to go in this session, we've been on board here with Ian Oates, but reminding ourselves of where things stand on the timing charts. Will Friedman leads the charge ahead of Chris Davies, multiple-time champion in this series, was the first ever driver to go back-to-back for championship bouts. Is a historic name in this series, and Davies very much so looking fired up on today's grid. We see on board here with the Ferrari. Currently making his way then down through to that middle sector. It's worth pointing out then Antonio Angeletta, and we'll get on to this subject when we get into the qualifying predictions just around the corner here. Things are looking very, very hopeful for this one in particular. Now, taking a quick glance over at balance and performance just before the end of this session today reveals that Ford is on the short end of the stick, but not as much as Ferrari. They're gaining 15 kilos under BOP for today, Ford with 11. Then behind them, Mercedes with 5 kilos on, Aston Martin with 4, BMW with 2. On the positives there. Into the negatives, only 2 kilos off for McLaren and 4 kilos off for Porsche. Nearest to the line, we'll go to quickly catch on board here with the number 26, I believe there. Just making his way down to the line, Mantas Mantinho. Across the line he goes then. Up to 9th for the end of that session, so great hustle by Mantinho. Is in a very close tie. That leads 6 points, as we mentioned before, between the leading pair down in the bronze category. Angeletta rounds out the session 3rd, Oates 4th. From behind there, we see across the line a moment ago when Andres Tichavari in the number 87 up in the silver category. Number 15 peeling into the pit lane. So that would be, as it stands there, for one of the new drivers to the field, Alessandro Brancolini, down in the bronze category there with Ferrari. Brilliant, brilliant livery indeed. We do like a good Rosso Corsa. That could even be closer up towards a Rosso Scuderia. Not 100% there, but still a bright, vivid red for that number 15 for his first drive this season. Number 717 nearby to the line. That'll be Parvis Agaverdi with McLaren on his way out through turn 15. And then nearest to the line, of course, is now the already having finished the session, number 26 of Mantas Mantinho. So we get now into the topic of qualifying at hand here. 20 minutes of qualifying, completely open-ended, no categorization like we saw in the very confusing qualifying that was Snetterton last week at round 2 of the championship. We see looking to make the first leap out of the pits then is Ian Oates. We'll go and stay on board here with the number 6 as he makes his way down the pit road here, down onto the exit of turn 1 and 2 here in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Now, this is a very bizarre layout indeed, taking a look into things here, as it combines, and bizarrely enough, elements of the already pre-existing road course used in the Soncio Grand Prix, the shorter of 2 races on the IndyCar calendar, but it also utilizes the hairpin section from, and I believe this is from the MotoGP layout, if I'm not mistaken. It also uses elements owed from the Formula 1 Grand Prix layout, as this circuit did find itself in the early 2000s as the home of the United States Grand Prix. Today, however, will be home to round 3 of season 11 of VSR. And reeling away then from another area of high discussion here for the VSR folks was, of course, the second round of the Shooting Stars Cup that we recorded not too long ago out in Imola with the folks over at Race Club UK, and we saw again was a victory for the VSR team, but they still find themselves flagging in behind Race Club UK, and now soon possibly the case for Simplay Motorsports in the team standings. They've nonetheless gone back-to-back for victories as a team, but it's those points distributions that are starting to become a bit of a concern for the group. We'll see how things fare though when we get into the penultimate round of the championship at Brands Hatch later on this month. Staying on board then with Ian Oates, taking a look into the qualifying predictions for today, and as we mentioned before, this could be one looking up for Antonio Angeletta. Predicted fastest a 1:35.780. That puts him ahead of Kieran Rodd in second, with Wishful Winnings predicted at third, Tyler Vermack in fourth, with Ian Oates in fifth. So middle of the road here for the number 6 in the gold category. Lee Evans, his contemporary, only about actually just shy of 3/10 there. That's 290 thousandths of a second, so 2 tenths 900ths between Oates and Evans, 2 Mercedes cars that have already made quite a riot, especially in that last round. Mr. Burney predicted 7th, Sean McNally 8th, Thomas Pumerol 9th, and Robert Ogan predicted in that top 10. So we're on board with Ian Oates as we take our trip down towards turn 1 and 2. Very tight section of the track here in this particular layout of Indianapolis, making our way down through turn 1 into turn 2. This is where we have seen a lot of battles go side by side right off the bat. Easy to follow here out through turn 3 as it starts to open up into turn 4, tightens back down, then opens up again between turn 4 and turn 5, and that gives us this prelude run here down towards turn 6, which is a major overtaking spot. This open hairpin left opens on exit there to reveal a very sharp right-hander at turn 7. Onto the back straight here. This is where the drivers can really get down on the hammer and let the engine sing here on this short back straight. This is the run down towards turn 8. Another major overtaking spot here at Indianapolis. One of the major complaints faced by drivers on this track is, unlike some other American circuits, this one lacks any kind of verticality. So it often becomes a case, especially in this middle and final sector here, up through turns 9, 10, and 11, down through to turns 12, 13, 14, and 15. That the drivers can't actually see a great deal of the track or any of the complexities of its corners. Out through turn 12, sorry, I should say, into turn 13. Now down to turn 14. Now, contrary to what our sign showed just a little earlier on, we did take a recount of the corners. It's 15, not 17 corners on this track. So out through turn 15 goes Ian Oates. Become the baseline time then for round 3's qualifying. Down to the line then goes the number 6 AMG across the line. Oates our first time onto the chart, and it's a 1:36.930. Nearest to the line then, number 1, Antonio Angeletta, predicted at pole position with Ford. Let's see what he can do, though, on his way down to the line. Across the line he goes, and goes fastest. Then from behind there we see Sean McNally, third fastest for Mercedes AMG. Number 32, oh, contact with the wall there. That's Lewis Purslow in trouble. and he pulls it into one side, and that's an early stop to his run in qualifying. He'll be back out shortly. Number 96 nearest to the line as it would stand. Across the line a moment ago, Robert Ogan to 4th place with Aston Martin. Number 11 to the line. That's Peter Mikolas. Tom6842 in chat saying, is this a one-shot quali? No, not this time around. No, this after last week, I assume the race control team took a look at the regulations and realized, okay, well, what we're trying here is a little difficult to track. It's not particularly being coordinated well amongst all categories. We had quite a few drivers that are now having to sit out this qualifying session because of infractions of them staying out way longer than their allotted window or doing more than one flying lap. Oh, we see there trouble for Mikolas. 222 across the line a moment ago. That was for Thomas Pumerol with Ferrari. Now 6th fastest. Sandwiched in between Mikolas and Brancalini there. Ferrari 5th, 6th and 7th on this grid. Number 28 nearest. Let's go to catch on board if we can here. I believe we're just about to miss them there, sadly, to the line. But across the line a moment ago went the number 28. And that was for Chris Davies. From behind him, the number 6 and the number 77. So we see here with Ryan Castle down in the bronze category, currently leading that championship after 2 rounds, but by a very, very thin point here. Silent Wolf 9044 saying, my clip the screen is black, but I can hear the commentator. Okay, this is what we've been able to figure out. The bit rate from our live stream is incompatible with certain devices, mostly mobile devices. So if you're using this on your phone, that will often be the explanation. Now, fret not, because we will have this uploaded to YouTube, hopefully by tomorrow. I can never gauge how long YouTube takes to upload these videos, but we are going to be bulk uploading a few more of our projects from this week onto the YouTube channel. So if you want to catch back in there, alternatively, do try and give it a whirl on your any of your consoles if you are using them. If you're, of course, not racing on the grid. I know some of the drivers do like to watch in as we go. Alternatively, if you have access to a laptop or PC nearby, that will work just fine. We're still looking into that issue, and until we have a comprehensive answer for you, we can't really express enough our sorries for that one. But again, this is out of our control. I'm pretty sure it is capped out at 6,000, Tyler, so I couldn't tell you what's been the issue so far. Again, it's something we're looking into, but we know that it is an issue. Not only is it an issue with our streams, I've noticed with mobile, it's not particularly the greatest client side for watching live streams on Twitch anyway. So that's all I can really offer to you right now. Ian Oates back up to the fastest time. We can't change the bitrate whilst we're streaming because it would shut the stream down. Works fine on phone, says Ghosty. Yeah, so again, it's on some devices, and I don't have a specific manufacturer's list of which devices will and won't work. It's really a client-by-client thing. Make sure it's up to date. Make sure the app's updated as well if you haven't done that already. And that should maybe clear up some of the issues. Again, the 99% of people reporting this issue have been watching on mobile, so that's why we're targeting specifically that side. If it's on PC, I couldn't tell you. Number 96 across the line a moment ago. Robert Ogan from 7th stays 7th as he crosses the line with Aston Martin. Number 11 nearest to the line. So from behind him in 8th place, Peter Mikolas. Down to the line behind him, Will Friedman. Mikolas stays 8th. With Friedman across the line starting a flying lap. That's soon to possibly drop to 9th. Across the line a moment ago also went the number 44. That was for Lee Evans. Now 3rd fastest with Mercedes up ahead of McNally and now Davies, who rounds out the back of that top 5. Across the line a moment ago, number 32 there. That was Lewis Purslow, 12th fastest. Number 12, Alfie Pryor, nearest to the line. Across the line then, Alfie Pryor to 9th. From behind him, the number 23, Tom Barlow. From 16th goes 8th, so Pryor, Mikolas, Barlow, Brancalini and Pumerol, not specifically in that order, do make a 5 Ferrari train there from 8th down to 12th place. 196, number 28 and number 6 coming to the line. So among them there, Ian Oates stays on for his fastest time so far, 136.380. Ryan Castle to the line from behind, and the number 1 of Antonio Angeletta in pursuit. Castle's up to 7th, and Angeletta goes pole. 110 thousandths clear now of Ian Oates. McNally back to 3rd, Evans down to 4th. Mercedes gunning for a 1-2-3 here in Indianapolis, but Ford is stopping them on their home ground race this season. Number 96, nearest to the line. Here comes Robert Hogan, but it looks like he's going into the pit lane. Yes, that is the case there for Aston Martin. Number 61, nearest to the line. So we go to catch on board if we can here with Kieran Rodd on his way to the line there. The Platinum driver across the line. And to start another flying lap. Behind him, the 504, I believe that is to be Timo across the line a moment ago, and he stays currently without a time to his name. He does pull over to one side there to allow the 208 through. That was for Will Friedman. And he's pulled over to one side of the road there on the emergency exits at turn 1. Speaking of Will Friedman, it's a curious case here for the Frenchman. He's yet to find himself with a time on the chart, though we've been seeing him on multiple occasions lapping here in Indianapolis. As we hit the halfway on qualifying, this is the current standing order of things as of the time of recording. Antonio Angeletta fastest, Oates second, McNally third, Evans fourth, and Davies in the top 5. Mantinho 6th, Castle 7th, Ogan 8th, Barlow, as we just saw there, from 9th now to 5th. So Davies 6th, Mantinho 7th, Castle 8th, Ogan 9th, and Michaelis in 10th. Number 28 across the line a moment ago. Chris Davies goes pole position, 123 thousandths up and ahead of Antonio Angeletta. Now enters a third manufacturer to the fray here for a possible pole position at the home of the Indy 500. 9.5 minutes left to go. Ferrari fastest now in this recent landslide change. Number 4 across the line a moment ago. McNally stays 4th. Recently demoted to outside of the podium there by that approaching time from the 28. Number 61 coming to the line. We'll go and catch on board here with Kieran Rodd on his way down through. Out of turn 15. Heading to the line. 9 minutes then left to go in this session. Rodd across the line, 6th fastest. Behind him comes Will Friedman. With Friedman across the line a moment ago. Again, no time set for the 208. It's a very confusing case here. As we see him down through to turn 1. Currently 21st on the field. One of 4 drivers yet to have set times. As I believe the remaining sum of drivers are actually going to be missing this quali session. So we know in the case for Agaverdi and Tishavari. And pulling back up that chart of drivers, it was 4, I believe, in total for round 3. So Kevin Perez and Matthias Gonalons. Now, Gonalons has since registered as a DSQ from this championship, and there's no sign yet of Kevin Perez. So as far as it pertains to this grid right now, with 8 minutes left to go in this session, it's Parvis Agaverdi and Andres Tishavari from gold and silver. Not gold and silver, sorry, bronze and silver, that are missing out on this quali session because of infractions over the course of last round, albeit fairly complicated quali. New fastest time by Ian Oates. We could be seeing, though, a rebuttal here from the number 28 across the line. It's only a single hundredth. Chris Davies now having been washed out to 3rd place. Antonio Angeletta lays in the new fastest time. We've also been given information pertaining to Tyler Vermack that he's also going to be missing out this qualifying session. Now, we were given a pretty early preliminary list of drivers, so if that's since been updated, that's news to us. But as it would stand then, Agaverdi, Tishavari and Vermack all to miss qualifying. They'll be starting on the bottom 3 rungs of this grid at the moment, looking north of some 20 drivers here in Indianapolis. But I think we're still far from over. New driver into the ring there, Kieran Rodd, across the line in the number 61 BMW, now makes 2nd fastest. So we have 4 manufacturers fighting for that leading position. Ford, BMW, Mercedes and Ferrari here in Indianapolis. And things are still far from over in their squabbling for the leading position on track. Number 32 nearby to the line. We'll see for Lewis Perslow, stays 15th after that last lap. We see here for the 29, just across the line a moment ago, this is Wayne Trigg, 16th in the session. So nearest wad of drivers to the line here, as it would stand, the number 28, the number 1, and the number 196. So Chris Davies, Antonio Angeletta, and Mr. Burney all making their way to the line. Mr. Burney having yet put a time on the charts. He's 21st in the session so far. Davies across the line stays 4th. Angeletta stays 1st. Burney across the line in the 196. As it would stand, stays again without a time to his name. It's a confusing story here for the 196. We saw him over the course of the last couple of seasons in a time with Ford, now with BMW. things are a little bit pear-shaped here for that 196 in qualifying today. Number 61 nearest to the line, so we saw recently that move up to second, and it's worth pointing out that top four as we enter the last 6 minutes of qualifying are all within 2/10 of one another. Across the line goes Kieran Rodd and brings the gap even closer to Antonio Angeletta's doorstep. Now, this is unprecedented stuff here in this season. We are looking at a Silver Division driver giving some serious grief to not only the top echelon of the series in Platinum, courtesy of drivers like Kieran Rodd, second place in this race so far, not in the race, sorry, in this qualifying so far. 5.5 minutes left to go. We also have two gold drivers challenging, that being Ian Oates and Chris Davies. With Rodd and Angeletta both in the pit lane, and a new swarm of drivers making their way down to the line. Number 29, number 11, and number 222. Mikulas and Pumarol. Pumarol up to 13th, now up and ahead of Alfie Pryor. Number 96 and number 6 across the line. So Ian Oates was among that fray there, tucked in behind the 96 on this grid. That being Robert Ogan, still comprising the back of that top 10. We're on board here with Chris Davies on his way to the line. What can he make of it? Across the line he goes. 167 thousandths was required, and he found it by more than enough. Up by 28 thousandths, up over Antonio Angeletta. Ferrari back to the top step, and things are certainly looking up here for Chris Davies. 4.5 minutes left to go. The two-time champ looking to put some grief here onto Antonio Angeletta on what has definitely been, for the number one here down in the silver category, one of his most engaged qualifying sessions we've seen so far. It is worth pointing out as well, you're seeing here the last of the two. Oh, was that contact? In qualifying, no less. The drivers raring to go already. We've not even hit the hour and 15 minutes of racing we'll soon see here in Indianapolis, and the drivers are already getting a bit argy-bargy in that middle sector of the track. So back on what we were saying, you are looking here at second and third place on your screens at the moment. First among that fray, the sort of aubergine purple number 01, that's Antonio Angeletta. Then behind you have that bright aquamarine number 61, that being the BMW of Kieran Rodd. These two separated by 70, actually looking here, 62 thousandths of a second. And right now, all three of the fastest drivers are separate by less than 1/10 of a second. So as we enter the last 3 minutes of qualifying just around the corner here, specifically 3 minutes 23 left to go, we enter our final flurry of laps from these two, as Chris Davies, as it would stand, is still in the pit lane after his most recent jaunt back up to pole position. 1:35.952 the time to beat. And as the number 1 and number 61 begin their flying laps once more, the challenge is now truly on. But let's not count out Mercedes in all of this. Ian Oates has been able to do quite a solid stint here in that top 5 over the course of this qualifying session so far. I'd still say he's yet to find the proper ceiling for performance on that AMG. It just takes the right place and the right time here, and we see just how dense for traffic this track has become over the course of just qualifying. So imagine what it's going to be like over the course of the race. You see in the background there, going way out wide, was the number 12, and that was for Alfie Pryor with Ferrari. Number 208 nearest to the line. Now, it is again worth pointing out, Will Friedman has been lapping the track for the longest time here. And we've seen this to be a possible strategy before, at least on a wider scale, for a lot of the drivers that are associated with the exclusive esports team. They do like the idea of sandbagging performance, keeping a lot of us in the dark over what their ceiling looks like for performance on their cars. We see here on another valid flying lap for now. We're going to watch intently with that 208 as we continue to report any changes to the grid. Timo across the line a moment ago stays 17th. Having a glance in, he's still valid even after that brief slice onto the grass. Meanwhile, it's also worth pointing out there, recent shift for the number 222, Thomas Pumarol to 6th, now up and ahead of Sean McNally. We're on board here with Will Friedman. What has been a very confusing time for the 208. He has been lapping around the track rather consistently so. There's been no yellow flags pertaining to the 208. He's not found himself in the center of any trouble, yet has yet to find position on the timing charts. And with only about 1.5 minutes left to go, there you can see he's cutting his way out through turn, looking at their turn 11. So I think maybe this next lap coming is where we could see the 208 lay in a time. Now, we didn't get any information pertaining to Friedman having a qualifying ban. We do know that is the case for Agaverdi, Tishavari, and for Mack, but Friedman being out on track. He's coming into the pit lane, so Friedman's taking sabbatical on all of this. This is a very confusing state of affairs for the 208. Clearly something going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, but Friedman, as it would stand, is starting from the back. Number 26 across the line a moment ago. And that was for Mantas Mantinho. Stays at the back of that top 5 in the 26. We have more news there from Vermaak. Wasn't necessarily a qualifying ban, but he does have a pit lane start, so hence his hesitation to come out of the paddock whatsoever over the course of qualifying, as it would all be for naught at the end of the day. Ian Oates goes fastest, so I did say not to count out Mercedes in all of this. That's 200ths of a second. We see Kieran Rodd blasting his way down to the line here. Is he going to be beaten by the bell across the line? Just there, just after the bell toll, but he makes third, up and ahead of Antonio Angeletta, who now drops to the back of the second row. It is worth pointing out that in the long history we've spent covering races here with VSR, we started our journey about 4 seasons ago now, back in season 7, for broadcast of every event of the season for VSR, and in all of that time I don't believe we've ever seen a qualifying this close. Ian Oates, Chris Davies, Kieran Rodd and Antonio Angeletta all divided by less than half of a tenth of a second. That's 48 thousandths front to back. This is absolutely mind-boggling stuff to see. And it's 4 different manufacturers. When you consider balance of performance as well, 4 manufacturers who have each been uniquely affected by BOP's changes in more often than not negative ways. No one manufacturer seemed to have this one nipped in the bud. It was Mercedes by a hair's width at the end of quali so far. But bear in mind, there's still a few more drivers to the line, so never say never on a potential dark horse challenger. Number 504, though, nearest to the line. This is Timo. Across the line went the 504, 17th at the end of this session. Well, what an end to qualifying we've just seen there here in Season 11, Round 3. So the 4 drivers skipping quali for a variety of reasons then. Parvis Agaverdi, Andres Tishafari, Tyler Vermaak, and Will Friedman. All starting towards the back of this field, but getting a look up at the front of it. That is the closest finish to qualifying I think we've seen on a wider scale here. I mean, we're talking 10 cars within a second of one another, and then at its very front, 4 cars within a half of a tenth of a second. I mean, this is just too good here in quali. It's any man's game here at the home of the Indy 500. Hallowed ground for the world of American motorsports. Sees racing of all shapes and sizes then, 2 wheels and 4 over its operational lifespan, spanning over a century, as one of the oldest continuously used racetracks in the world. If not the oldest, if memory serves correct, as the Brooklyn circuit, of course, is no longer, and that was the one that came just before this circuit opened in 1909. Brooklyn's opening 2 years before in 1907. So, Ian Oates on pole here in Indianapolis, then Chris Davies, then Kieran Rodd, then Antonio Angeletta. Sadly, no news to discuss just before we get in towards the current scope of the grid. It is a very curious one indeed, on a track that has definitely split opinions for the masses. Drivers and fans alike seem to have mixed bag opinions on this particular layout that was used for GT World Challenge America. We see here just on his in lap the number 196. So we wait for the grid to form up. So, getting a gander at the grid then for Season 11, Round 3 of VSR. It's Ian Oates on pole position, Chris Davies in second, Kieran Rodd in third, and Antonio Angeletta in 4th place. Mantas Mantinho in 5th place, up and ahead of Thomas Pumerol in 6th, Mr. Burney in 7th with Sean McNally 8th, Lee Evans in 9th, and Tom Barlow rounds out the top 10. Robert Ogan in 11th place ahead of Ryan Castle in 12th, Peter Michaelis in 13th ahead of Alessandro Brancolini Brancalini, I should say, on their first ever race here. They start on the back of the 7th row, 14th place. Behind them on the 8th row, Alfie Pryor and Wayne Trigg, 15th and 16th, with Timo in 17th. Lewis Perslow in 18th, Parvis Agaverdi, Andres Tishavari, Tyler Vermack, and Will Friedman make the, looking at it here, the scope of that 10th and 11th row, all 4 of them missing qualifying for a variety of reasons. This is really any man's game. We've seen pace-wise, there is very, very little one can comprehend that separates these 4 outside of the data we had. So I imagine a very lively start, like one we saw back in Snetterton last week, is coming up here for what is scoped up to be an hour and 15 minutes of racing. Getting a look on the calendar here, round 3 of the championship. Short to get underway. We'll be on board with Ian Oates leading us on this formation lap as we find ourselves edging closer to the season midway, only some 2 weeks away, at another American circuit on April 15th, Watkins Glen in Schuyler County, New York State. Will be on for an hour and 20 minutes of racing when we arrive over there 2 weeks from now. Before, though, we take a trip through Europe as we go over to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo E. Dino Ferrari on the 8th of April for 20 minutes of quali and 60 minutes of racing at round 4. So then a minute to go. And I really would say, having a look at the, the available options here amongst that top 4, you've got 2 cars that are known for great straight line speed. You have a car that's renowned for its stability, like the AMG. It's a real curb punisher. We've seen on tracks where you often have to get handsy with the inside line. You have to get handsy over the curbs if you want to get the most out of the track. On a track like this, the Mercedes has blossomed thus far, especially in the hands of Ian Oates. Ferrari, keep a close eye on them. Chris Davies, a very experienced driver on this grid, 2-time champion in this series. Kieran Rodd, of course, a champion in his own respect in this series way back when. We'll go and catch on board with Ian Oates in a moment's time. Now, taking a look back through the champions, this was when they still used their usernames at this time. Kieran Rodd won back in Season 9 in the Porsche Cup era. We saw for Chris Davies, that was in Season 3 and Season 6 of this series.
10 seconds.
So on board with Ian Oates, leading us away then. The Mercedes at the front of the field. You see there, starting from the pit lane, Tyler Vermack. So that presently makes 21 cars on track. 1 from the pit lane, 22 in total. 10 on one side, 11 on the other for the start of round 3, making their way down through to turn 1. Oh, very enthusiastic start there by Mantas Mantinho. The number 26 clattered the wall. As a matter of fact, if we can get a look at that on the replays just quickly. Have a glance at this. This was on the formation lap between the pair. And you see the 2 Ferraris there start their swerving down the back. And there, it's just the back end catches for the number 20. Actually, no, that... Hang on a tick. Was that for Mantinho? Yes, it was. It was for Mantinho. My mistake. Yeah, I think it's the common misconception we have as well. If we actually go and take a look at this whilst we've got the opportunity. You see, this is Tom Barlow in the 23. Okay, yellow and red. Now, much more easily distinguishable from the back where the primary colour is the yellow. Look over the front there. You see, just among the crowd, you can see in front, this is exactly what we're talking about. So, yeah, red with yellow stripes. Then you go and take a look in with that of Mantas Mantinho. And again, same team livery, but a different variation of it, red with yellow stripes. That's where we get these two mixed up all the time. So we, of course, don't have the name tags over the cars because, well, they look terrible on the replays, all things considered. Looking here with Kieran Rodd on the back straight. Now, we're starting right up alongside Antonio Angeletta, and on the straightaway sections here between turns 7 and 8 and on the run out through turn 15 down towards turn 1 is where these two cars will have primary advantage. They're proper juggernauts on the straights. Fastest among the fray here on this grid. Had Lexus been in for this race, we could have also had a third in that conversation, but as it stands, it'll be BMW and Ford. As, of course, under pit skill regulations, we don't have any engine restrictions on the Mustang, so all it's gaining is that 11 kilo ballast and nothing more, nothing less. So back on board here with Ian Oates, right alongside, and then Chris Davies for the run down through turns 13, 14 and 15 here, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. as it would stand, you'll have to bear with me a second here, folks, because as it would appear, very last second change, what was originally meant to be an hour and 15 minutes of racing, I'm actually seeing here is only an hour. So this is a very curious case here, folks. We've been sliced off a quarter of an hour, so the drivers will have even less time than they would have thought they had today here in Indy to make this count. So as we see them down to the line, what was previously anticipated as an hour and 15 is now only an hour here at the home of the Indy 500. Down towards the line, season 11, round 3 of VSR is underway. We're green and racing here in Indianapolis, and a brilliant start there from Kieran Rott. Have a glance in with the 61, charging down through to turn 1, is nearly 3 abreast on the run in towards turn 1. Ian Oates holds centre mass of the road, down through to turn 1. Kieran Rott's on the inside, it's contact from behind, and a huge spill of cars down through to turn 1. Oh my goodness, a huge pile up there down at turn 1. Have a glance at where it all started here. As the camera pans out, it was contact between, as it appeared, having a look, that is Mantinho, if I'm not mistaken, and Ryan Castle. Either that or it was Tom Barlow and Ryan Castle, but regardless there, it was the Ferrari and the McLaren that spurred on that huge incident. It was, yes, it was Barlow at this time. Again, funny we should mention that point before. Having a look at how that's affected the rest of the grid right now, we're taking a look at things. Ian Oates leads here by a very thin margin over Kieran Rott. These two now are leading pair. Oates maintains his leading position in what was a very chaotic start to things, held centre mass of the road and kept the 61 at bay. Mantas Mantinho, who we had confused up there with Tom Barlow, maintains third, albeit was one of the casualties at the start of this race. He's gone up and ahead, though, of Antonio Angeletta. Then behind, we see Mr. Bernie carving his way into that top 5. Right behind him is Chris Davies and Robert Ogan, as things would stand. Lee Evans behind them in 8th place. Thomas Pumerol in 9th, and Wayne Trigg rounds out the top 10. We see here for Lewis Perslow, backs off to allow McNally on through. And on his trails, there's Alfie Pryor, turned around. Goes the number 1, Antonio Angeletta, in the mud there on the exit of turn 13 and 14. Now falls in just in front of Parvis Agaverdi. Right behind him is Peter Mikulas in the number 11. It has been nothing short of a disaster here for the race start of round 3. Side by side here, Mikulas versus Agaverdi. This is for 18th, down through to turn 1. The Ferrari on the inside. Later onto the brakes there. Nice, neat and tidy. That's how you do it. Looking on board here with the fights inside of the top 10. And we see, as things stand, Bernie gaining grounds here on Evans, having fallen down by the wayside in recent memory here. In the background, we see recent advance from the 222. Oh, it's contact up ahead. The 196 half spin down through turn 6. Now to turn 7. We see Will Friedman, my goodness, carving his way through the field. Already inside of that top 10. And has, oh my God, into the wall there goes Thomas Pumerol. That is a shoulder check of the ages from Mr. Bernie. Down through to turn 8, we see at the moment, just up in front of them, as things stand, is having a glance in. That's the number 29. That's Wayne Trigg, now up and ahead. Into the wall then went Thomas Pumerol, barged in by the 196. Wayne Trigg now inherits that 7th place spot. Right behind, we see it's properly elbows out here. The 196 versus the 208. Will Friedman goes high and around the outside there. It's backing off. Goes Mr. Bernie. Nearly some contact there between, by looks of things there, Sean McNally and Alfie Pryor. Pryor's around the outside at turn 14. But with a better line into turn 15, the number 4's got the momentum to carry. Into the pit lane, we see in the background goes the 196. Watching here from Perslow's point of view, as up in front is the continued fight as it stands for 7th place. Wayne Trigg versus Will Friedman. It's a night and day difference here for Ford straight line capacity. Down into turn 1 we go. The 208 up into 7th. Alfie Pryor actually stayed his ground up and ahead of McNally, so fair play to him on the exit of turn 15. Back in through turns 1, 2 and 3. Behind him McNally, Perslow, and as it was standing, Barlow and Angeletta. We see Angeletta trying his luck around the outside here, but Perslow staying strong on the inside. We see running all the way on the outside there goes Antonio Angeletta. That allows him to the inside down at turn 6. It's a lofty send, and following in his trails there as it stands is Tom Barlow, who was part of that incident earlier on between himself and Ryan Castle that kicked off the start of this race down into turn 1 and 2. Now sliding in behind Angeletta. Purslow having dropped 2 positions now, down to 13th place in that recent fight. Meanwhile, getting a glance up at the front of the field, just as we get an opportunity here, Ian Oates still by a hair's width clear of Kieran Rodd, who is vehemently hunting down victory here in Indianapolis. It is anyone's game between these two. Mercedes versus BMW, the battle of the German juggernauts here in Indianapolis. Behind them, it's an all-Ferrari second. Roman Tasmantino and Chris Davies with the fastest lap at the moment. Behind them, Robert Ogan into the top 5 with Aston Martin. Lee Evans hunting him down there, closing on distance, 1.6 seconds between the pair. But one thing he's definitely got to keep an eye out for is behind him now, descending upon him, the 208 of Will Friedman. Wayne Trigg maintains position. We see here the second part of the fighting between McNally and Pryor. Pryor staying centre mass of the road in towards turn 1. Number 4 looking for a more aggressive exit of turn 1 to loop through into turns 2, 3 and 4. As we see a little bit of a wobble there for Alfie Pryor. Good defense though so far for him. As it would stand then, defending away that 9th place for Alfie Pryor, under siege from 2 separate cars here. McNally and now Angeletta joining the fray. Up in front of him, you see slowly escaping his sight is Wayne Trigg in the number 29. Out through turn 7 we go, onto the back straight. We'll cut away from this fight just quickly to go back on board with the leading pair, as things are looking razor thin now between the leading duo. Going to catch on board as soon as we can here with either side of it. On board with the attacking angle. This is Kieran Rodd's point of view, currently in the battle of first place. Glued right to the back end there. The number 6 has to back out unless he clips the back end of the Mercedes on the run down through turn 13 and 14. Now down to turn 15. Onto the start of lap 4, a very chaotic opening 7 minutes. Here in what was originally slated to be an hour and 15 minutes of racing. That's definitely a very recent change we weren't made aware of. We're still looking at the calendar we were given at the start of the season, and it seems a lot of things have changed unbeknownst to us. Out through turn 4 into turn 5. Things getting super close now. Rodd eyeing his way up to the inside, but you can see holding again that inside line. Was previously centre mass, then sweeps into the inside line as the number 6 of Oates. Out through turn 6, now to turn 7. The Mercedes putting on a great show here for defence, using its size to its advantage. Very wide rear end on the AMGs, keeping the BMW from trying to sneak its way on the inside at most of these diving spots here. Down through to turn 8 we go. Kieran Rodd, also acutely aware of how wide his car is having to pick and choose his chances. Meanwhile, yellow flags out in the background, getting a look in with who that's for. The number 87, it's Andres Tishavari down in the silver category. Down at turn 6, I believe there was some contact there. Still analysing the damage. And oh, as we catch it there, Alfie Pryor was turned around, if I'm not mistaken. Just getting a look here on the replay as we look in with the battling going on behind with Purslow and McNally. As we just cut on board there with Alfie Pryor, I'm pretty sure that was an instance of contact between himself and the number 1. No, it wasn't. So our mistake there, not with the number 1. It was McNally in the number 4, and that's what allowed Tom Barlow to sneak up on him just a moment ago. So as we're back in the green flag conditions for the time being, the fog of war still descending upon this track. And amongst it has now allowed Tom Barlow back into that top 10. Going back on board here with Rod V. Oates at the front of the field. There is also the approaching fight for third here with Mantas Mantinho. And it's worth pointing out here for Mantinho, he's a bronze category driver going toe-to-toe with a 2-time champion in this series. That is no small feat here for that number 26. Looking in out of turn 7, I should say. Onto the back straight. Both of them stepping out wide. Here in Sector 1 into Sector 2. Looking in the background here, Chris Davies sizes his chances. This is presently then in that fight for third. He's looking at the inside. It's contact between the 2 Ferraris. A borderline suicidal lunge there by Davies. What was the plan for the number 28? leapt for the inside, has now been punished for it. The 44 tries his luck around the outside. That kicks the door open for an advancing Will Friedman, who has really been on a mission of his own since the start of this race. Was one of 4 drivers to have missed out in quali to put positions on the track. Down through to turn 12, 13 and 14. Turn 13 and 14, I should say. We were just out of turn 12. Will Friedman is not too far off of making a claim of that top 5. It's only just ticking over to be the last of the first 10 minutes of racing here. Still 50 minutes left to go here in Indianapolis. We saw for Kieran Rodd in his pursuits of Ian Oates, looked his way on the inside, trying to throw the number 6 off the trail. Out through turn 2, now to turn 3, into turn 4. You're in this very tight opening sector. Looping around then to turn 5 and 6. You can see the 61 far closer than he's been on the last couple of occasions. You can see this mounting aggression here from Kieran Rodd. He is trying his luck at every which way now, and it's only a matter of time until this fight, like many before it, ends up in the same way with an explosive turn of events between these two, likely resulting in yet another collision. This track seems to then breed this unique variety of chaos, seldom seen anywhere else, especially for the American circuits. Not even Watkins Glen, a circuit that cut its teeth in stock car racing, has produced in this series the same, I was going to say quality, the same variety of racing. It's certainly been a unique one. While it has already been a bit of a chaotic start to the season in the last 2 weeks at the Nürburgring and Snetterton, this is really the cherry on top, with what is practically boiled down to becoming banger racing for the majority of that grid today. These two showing us how it's done at the front of the field. Moreover, behind them is still that possible consideration for a fight soon on the horizon between Robert Ogen and Mantas Mantinho. More on that in a moment's time. Taking a look then back across the field, we can actually see the scope of that fight there. Mantinho versus Ogen with about 7/10 of a second between the pair. We see Davies versus Friedman on the opening straight as well. Behind them is Lee Evans. So after the first 10 minutes of racing, Ian Oates presently leads the charge on this field. The 61 in trouble down at turn 1. Has things gone a little too wrong here for Kieran Rodd in his attempt up the inside? We did say it would end up this way, with those two practically sliding for the greater majority of the last couple of laps. It certainly does make you wonder. Oates leads then ahead of Rodd, with Mantinho 3rd, Ogen 4th. We see here a possible change for 5th coming up soon. Chris Davies currently holds on to it. Will Friedman in pursuit. You could see just how precise he's been able to corral that Mustang into form over the course of only just 13 minutes coming up on of racing here in Indianapolis. If ever there were a driver more deserving of the Platinum title, I'd assume it is Friedman. He's in that category for a reason. You can see the way that he's commanding that vehicle. He's made his way up from what was the back of the field, I'd like to point out, and is now currently 6th, hunting down 5th, and he certainly has the pace on the table today to gun for a podium. If not, depending on how things continue to boil over between Rodd and Oates, a possible chance at a 2nd or even 1st place victory here in this race. As of course, there is still the consideration of the category wins outside of the overall win in this race. So as it would stand, your leaders by category: in the golds is Ian Oates, in the platinums is Kieran Rodd, in the bronzes is Mantas Mantinho, and in the silvers is Robert Ogen. So that's a very unique perspective to see things from. The 4 division leaders are in the 4 highest positions of the field overall. Having a look in with some of the other fights going on around the track at the moment, we did see a bit of a clatter in with the wall there for Tishavari, as we were looking on with the fight just in front of him as that continues to boil down. That's Peter Miklas versus Alessandro Brancalini, the 2 Ferraris looking close to start fighting. Of course, there is still the elephant in the room here of the fighting inside of that top 10. Namely between, as you can see here, recent advance by Chris Davies onto the back end of Robert Ogen. So what we're going to go and do is try to catch on board here with the Aston Martin at the front of that field, as he himself is looking to try and close ground on Mantas Mantinho in 3rd place. Getting a glance in. We'll stay on board with the 96 and back to you in just a moment's time. So still on board then with Robert Ogan as we see things continue to get closer here on the fight of 4th place. It is definitely squeezed in now to be the scope of some 3 cars in all. Having a look in behind to see much closer. This is the fight currently for 5th place. Was more localized fight, but on that wider scale was for 4th for the longest time. We see Friedman sizing his chances to the inside down at turn 13. Now to turn 14. Now to the outside. Looking for an inside on exit. Down through to turn 15. We're on board here with Will Friedman in that fight for 5th place. You see he's got the straight line speed up over his opponents. Down the inside then at turn 1. Chris Davies couldn't do a great deal there to hold the Mustang off on the opening straight. Simply not enough cylinders to match. So taking a look at the field then, recently up into that top 5 goes Will Friedman. Robert Ogan still hunting down Mantas Mantinho. Chris Davies looking at sizable counter-attack in the next couple of laps here. You can see he's glued himself to the back of that Mustang. He's going to be very eager to get himself back up in front within the next 12 or so minutes before we get to the bulk of our first mandatory pit stops. And taking a look around the field then, further down the line, of course, is Lee Evans and Antonio Angeletta, currently 7th and 8th, respectively. Sean McNally, 9th, and Tom Barlow now into the top 10. Getting closer and closer to a chance at 9th place. Now, it was a very troubled start to this race for the number 23. That contact between himself and Ryan Castle is what spurred on that huge pile-up earlier on, and I believe looking at the replays there, part of it was instigated by the 23 drifting up over to the number 77, was squeezed into the left-hand side, and as the 77 converged over to the left, the 23 tried to emerge to the center of the road, and the two came together, leading to that incident down through turn 1. Further outside of that top 10, just pointing out as well, Trigg, Pryor, Purslow, Vermack, who started from the pit lane, Tishavari, Mikulas, Brancalini, Timo, Castle, and Agaverdi to the back of that top 20. Seeing here with Robert Ogan, part of now a 3-car fight for the podium. Mantas Mantinho up in front there with Ferrari. It's been a brilliant show of force here. He's been able to surf his way around a lot of the madness that's prevailed over the start of this race. Down through to turn 6, we see from behind there, Ogan now forced to the outside, will be to the inside at turn 7. Can he sort of lodge in a sizable counter-attack here over Will Friedman? The two are side by side as they enter the back straight here between turn 7 and 8. Ford versus Aston Martin, V8 against V8, down through to turn 8 they go. Friedman to the inside here, Ogan to the outside, and forced back in behind goes the Aston Martin as we enter the run through turns 9, 10 and 11 and 12. Brilliant move then by Friedman. Willing to play for the long game here, but bear in mind, this is him playing the long game. And we've only been 20 minutes in, and he's now 4th on this grid. Nonetheless, very close racing that's been had so far inside of that top 10. We see here in the trailing end of it, McNally and Barlow. This is for 9th on the grid, and an even closer fight in behind is Pryor v Purslow. Brancalini and Mikulas. We pointed this one out a little earlier on. We see for Alessandro Brancalini closing in by about 9/10 of a second now. Having a glance in here to see side-by-side action. Mantinho nearly taken there for 3rd place by Will Friedman off through turn 1. Now it turns 2, 3 and 4. We see difference in line is drawing Friedman back into things here. So we're going to go back on board with the 208 in his continued pursuits then of the 3rd place spot. A man on the warpath here, Will Friedman, looking at the inside down at turn 6. Can't find any room of it. Later onto the brakes went Mantinho to hold him at bay. Now, it's worth pointing this out. Mantinho is categorized as a bronze division driver, and yet here he is holding off a platinum driver here in Indianapolis. What is his chances of trying to defend here from Friedman? Not a great deal, as we saw earlier on from Chris Davies, a fellow Ferrari inside of that top 10. As going on through, practically walking past the Ferrari, there goes the Ford of Will Friedman. The Ferrari can defend in the corners, but on the straightaways, it's a deer in the headlights here. And of whose headlights it is for the 208. Having a look back up to the front of that field, we can still see here, and having quickly reconvened on this fight for the leads, closing his ground into now a 2.5 is Kieran Rodd. It's worth pointing out that he was down some nearly 3 to 4 seconds after an incident between himself and the 6 down at turn 1 in an attempt to go up into the lead of this race. We see converging behind them there is 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, and being Friedman, Mantinho, Ogun and Davies. So, looking in then, with Robert Ogun. We see running out wide, then goes Mantas Mantinho. So this opens up the opportunity here. We're on board at the moment with Robert Ogun in the fight of 4th place. Now, it's worth pointing out, as close as he is to the back of the Ferrari, the story therein still applies to the Ferrari behind him. Chris Davies makes 3 cars in all for this fight, currently for 4th place. Ogun looked at the inside there, but like Mantinho tried to employ down at turn 6 on Friedman, he was later onto the brakes to keep the Ford at bay. Meanwhile, it's just worth reporting here with about 7 minutes left to go before the halfway mark of this race, and where we're expecting the bulk of these pit stops. Running out wide goes Ogun and Mantinho. Through goes Davies then up towards 4th place. A double overtake for the 2-time champion. Get a look at this on the replays here. Down through the turns 13 and 14. You can see in his efforts to sort of try and goad the 26 into playing defensively, he himself runs out of ground. Through goes the number 28. So Davies took Mantinho and Ogun for a ride down through that last set of corners. We see down through to turn 1, only continuing here. A little bit of desync as we rejoin with the pair, but we see going up and around the outside of Robert Ogun was Mantas Mantinho with Ferrari. These two are properly on some solid form here. But what a move as well by Chris Davies. 2 positions for the price of 1 down at turn 13. Can't get much better than that one. He's back into the top 5, and moreover, he's up into the top 2 rows of this grid with that move alone. Mantinho v Ogun, the next consideration then for a fight inside of the top 5. It's worth pointing out in recent laps here, Rodd's gap that was previously 1.5 seconds has since dropped to 2.5 seconds, and that's brought him closer to Will Friedman. You see in the background there, that's the Aston Martin and the Ferrari. That's Mantinho and Ogun very late onto the brakes through turn 8, with Mantinho holding his ground ahead of the Aston Martin down through to turn 10 and 11 and 12. Into turn 12 we go then. Turn 13 and 14 just around the corner, the same area. These two went for a ride. The Aston Martin is not going to be fooled again on this one, but the Ferrari runs out wide. Mantinho drops position off to Ogun, up to the top 5. Goes the 96. Played his cards right there. Robert Ogun earlier onto the brakes. He's learnt from his mistakes very early on. That adaptability has played very high dividends into his performance here, as now up into the top 5. Once again goes the Aston. We are seeing here converging on a possible fight, Barlow v McNally. Now, it's worth pointing out, these two were previously the other way around, with Barlow 10th, McNally in 9th. Now it finds itself flipped on its head. Getting a look in the background there, that's the 888 BMW we just saw off in the distance. That bright white BMW there, that's Tyler Vermack, who started from the back of this field with a pit lane start, mind you, as well. So it was a very, very confusing time for him, but much like another driver who was forced to start from the back of the field, albeit not from the pit lane, being Will Friedman, both of them have made up sizable ground here over the course of the race in what is just under halfway through so far. We see here on what is McNally's possible chances for counter-attack against Tom Barlow. Up in front of them there appears to be that of Wayne Trigg. This is the 29. down through to turn 8. It's worth pointing out Perslow in the pits we saw not long ago as well was Andres Tishavari. Dropping off the jacks, then goes to 32. So Lewis Perslow permitted for exit. And that's his last pit stop done for the day. Only a single mandatory pit stop in this race. Will Friedman, as it stands then, 1.6 seconds from the leading duo. It is now getting closer and closer to the case here, whereby even possibly the end of this lap, there will be a stalemate solution between second, first, and third, as Kieran Rodd may find himself at equal distance to the car in front as he is to the car behind, and that represents a very dangerous sign for him here with the rapid approach of Will Friedman, because that gap will not stay at 1.6 seconds for very long, mind you, given how the last couple of laps have panned out so far for the 208. For Kieran Rodd, he has really been presented with somewhat of an ultimatum here, use it or lose it, and he's evidently starting to use it as he's back in now under a second away from Ian Oates. A brilliant first sector there by Kieran Rodd. Into sector 2 we go, down at turn 8. Just after the back straight, you can see he's really starting to put the burners on now. He can feel the pressure mounting in from behind. Will Friedman is not going away anytime soon from his rear view mirror, so he's got to get another car between him and that 208 as soon as possible. On the run round turn 12, into turns 13 and 14 here in Indianapolis, Kieran Rodd looking for his chances. This could very well represent an in-lap here for Ian Oates. He's definitely pumped the brakes a bit on his performance in this lap alone, because Rodd has been able to really cruise up to the back end of the Mercedes, but he's electing to stay out. So this next lap coming will likely be his last before he comes into the pit lane. As you can see, the performance of the Mercedes is starting to flatline here compared to the BMW, and especially compared for both of them against the Mustang. Ford gunning for home ground victory here in season 11. Can they prevail against BMW and Mercedes? Well, we're about to find out here, possibly even before the first of our pit stops today. Down through turn 2 into turn 3, we see it's razor thin now. All three drivers divided by less than a second to each other. Going on board then with these three, we'll go on board to Will Friedman's point of view. He's got front row tickets to this fight for the lead of the race, one that he very well might be in the position to inherit. Out through turn 7 we go, onto the back straight. He's got the better of 3 lines. He wasn't the one sliding his way out, so he's not scrubbing the tyres here. On the run down through to turn 8, he's got straight line speed, even on the BMW. Another very capable car in the straightaway sections here in Indianapolis. We see running wide goes the AMG. That nearly drifts onto the nose of the BMW. Ford's keeping their distance into sector 2 here, but it's going to be striking distance if they don't come in on this lap. They've got to catch 22, stay out and be overtaken, or come in and run your chances for the rest of this race. Will Friedman, part of that fight for first place. Not sure why that went away so quickly, but he is very much still in that fight for first. We see, though, peculiarly enough, it's Friedman coming into the pit lane. A curious sign then from the 208, as even though he definitely possessed the chances and the pace, certainly, to try and go for his luck there in a fight for the lead alongside the 61 and the 1. Not the 61 and the 1, the 61 and the 6. The number 1's down in 7th. He elects to come in to the pit lane. What a curious change then. We see just on the exit of the pit lane here. Here's Tom Barlow, having dropped down to 13th place as he exits the pits now. Going back on board, though, with that leading pair. It's worth getting in on with the fight for first place. Trying to catch in here. This is with the number 6, the one with the leading car, Ian Oates. As you heard there, the halfway mark just passed now. 30 minutes left to go here in Indianapolis, and I think we're still far from over. These two still need to see their way to the pit lane at some point, but it's really a game of who pulls the trigger first. They're in an old Western-style draw for their pit strategy today, as pace alone would prove these two sides of the same coin. Down through turn 9 and 10, now to turn 11. Approaching then turn 12. That Mercedes still keeping the BMW at arm's length, but by how much longer can he hope to toe the line? Down to turns 13 and 14. Who pulls the trigger first then on the run to the pit lane? Will it be Oates? Will it be Rod? Or will it be both? As it appears, Oates is going for it. What's the calling then for Rod? We see the BMW is staying out. The 61 will inherit the race lead for the time being as in comes Ian Oates to the pit lane. Now, is this in direct reaction to Will Friedman? Very likely to be the case, as of course, both of them were feeling the heat there from that 208. The last thing the number 6 wants after qualifying from pole and staying in that leading position all throughout this race so far is to lose that out under strategy. So he is going to be playing in a almost direct counter to the 208. His priority right now is to keep that Ford in behind. You see another Mercedes leaving the pit lane. This is Sean McNally, emerging 12th place for the time being. Now, when you consider as well plenty of drivers still to come to the pits, McNally will likely then be seeing his way back into the top 10. As it stands then, Kieran Rod leads ahead of Chris Davies, Antonio Angeletta to 3rd, and Lee Evans to 4th. Tyler Vermaat to 5th place. In the pits at the moment is Oates and Mantinho. Michaelis stays out. As it would, yes, stand there down at turn 13, now to turn 14 and 15. So for Michaelis, he's going to be moving up to 6th place, as it would appear. This very long pit road. Will Friedman. Now this is what Ian Oates is so afraid of at the moment, that 208 getting the position up on him. Has Oates played his cards right? Well, the 208 is closing in a little too quickly, and he's still not off of the limiters here. So the 208 likely then to move up to what could very well be the scope of the leading positions of this race. As you can see in the background there, just as he crossed off the lines goes Ian Oates, with Will Friedman now up and ahead. What this represents then is a pretty heavy notice here. Will Friedman could be going from one of the furthest to the back positions of the field to the lead here in this race in Indianapolis. Now, we've seen some serious recovery drive efforts in a few different championships, VSR included, but I don't think many can scope up to this one. We said only about a week ago, I believe, that I don't think we'd ever see a comeback drive quite like the one we saw. I think it was actually in the World Series for trying to get my bearings about it. It was for, why does the name suddenly blank my mind? Rafael Bayer. I said back in that coverage when we were last on with the World Series that we'd never see a recovery drive like that, where a driver starts from the back and makes their way up to, he made his way up to, I believe it was 2nd or 3rd by the end of that race. Think again, because Will Friedman is here to set the record straight in that 208, and from where he stands right now, he could very well be looking at the lead after strategy plays its hand here. He has done this absolutely airtight in that 208. He's had the pace for it throughout today's race. He's been easily seconds up on his contemporaries, and as he approached the fight at the front of the pack, it definitely raised many questions as to why he came in so early, but now we see pen to paper on why that is. Pace alone he had. Strategy is one thing he needed to make sure worked, because even if it didn't, he'd have the pace to hunt them down. In the case of the 208, this was purely an efficiency thing. You see in the moment then, this is Ian Oates. And while his mission to keep the Ford behind him has failed, now his priorities shift to keeping the BMW behind. And that's Kieran Rod on his way currently down through to turn 1. So he stays out here on lap 21. Into the pit lane goes Antonio Angeletta. Tyler Vermaat stays out as well. As it would stand, Peter Michaelis, no current word on what he's getting up to here from 4th on the field. He's a little too far away for us to gauge if he's coming into the pits now. No suggestion yet from the number 11. Cutting in then with some of the closer fights of the field here. Lewis Perslow versus Andres Tishavari. Behind them, Alfie Pryor versus Alessandro Brancalini. Two very close fights at hand here. Two Ferraris, and then up in front of them a Mercedes and a Ford at the front of the field, at least in their area of the woods. Also worth pointing out, and this is a very recently converging fight, 10th place, Evans v Barlow. So as a matter of fact, we'll try to catch on board if we can here with Lee Evans on board with the 44, a driver who we saw last season spend the majority of his time with Nissan. He, like many of the previous drivers of the GTR, like a driver actually tucked in behind him there just down the road, about 2 seconds away, was Sean McNally. Oh, running out wide there for Evans. Made this shift over from Nissan to Mercedes in a very controversial change of pace there from the GTR to the AMG GT. You can still see that there are a few teething issues with the platform, but still presents himself as a capable talent on this field. We also see here the emergence of another fight. This is for 7th place, Angeletta versus Ogun. Bear in mind, with Angeletta having just recently left the pit lane, once he gets those tyres into peak heat, things could get very dicey here for that 96, who's been a real trooper in this race. Robert Ogun, who's seen routine visits then in today's round to that top 5, now looking to hold on to 7th for the time being. 23 minutes left to go here in Indianapolis, here at Season 11, Round 3 of VSR. We'll stay on board, as a matter of fact, here with Robert Ogun once again. Presently then defending 7th place away from the approaching Mustang of Antonio Angeletta. Now this is one of, again, several fights on the field right now. And we still have 3 puzzle pieces left to play here, with Peter Mikolas, Tyler Vermack and Kieran Rodd all yet to have visited the pit lane. You see for Robert Ogun, he runs out wide, and that allows the number 1 to just sweep on through around the outside at turn 14. It could be a moment of contact there, but they just avoid it by a hair's width down through to turn 15. And now this boosts itself up to the fight of 6th place, as we see in the pit lane is Peter Mikolas with Ferrari. So bumped up a position goes both the Aston and the Mustang. So we see there Kieran Rodd, currently the race leader, is staying out, and he's rather frustrated with the scope of things in front of him because he's got 2 cars scrapping over his nose when he needs to put ground on both of them. It's contact between Angeletta and Ogun, and that also collected Rodd with a bit of a front end bump there from the BMW. Get a look at this down through to turn 1. Ogun looking at the inside, clips the number 1 there, then the 61 bumps him from behind. All 3 of them caught in a bit of a prang there down at turn 1. We see in the aftermath of it, Angeletta is back up and ahead of Ogun in a very sudden turn of events there, one that has definitely frustrated Kieran Rodd over what could have been his chances to stay out towards the front of that field. When you consider that Will Friedman is only the sum of, looking at it here, about 3/4 of a lap away, which is still closing distance. Now with even more issues creeping their way in, this is easily the scope of an in-lap now for Kieran Rodd. The 2 cars left on this field then, both Platinums, both BMWs, Rodd and Vermack. And credit where credit's due here for Tyler Vermack. He did start from the pit lane to where he is at the moment. Now we'll see exactly where he falls into after his mandatory pit stop. Likely to have come up in the next lap or 2 here, if not this one. He has put on some great hustle here in Indianapolis against adverse odds. We see into the pit lane as predicted, then goes Kieran Rodd. The race lead currently in, so that kicks the doors open here for an advance for Will Friedman. We'll see what the calling is here for Vermack. Vermack will stay out and move into the race lead for the time being. So as we see him down through turn 15. And across the line he goes then. Now into the lead of this race for the time being, Tyler Vermack in the 888 BMW. We see behind him, looks to be an ongoing fight here, Trigg versus Tishavari. This is for 12th place. We see just quickly on board with the Mustang here of Andres Tishavari. This is for 12th on the run down through to turn 1. Behind them is Lewis Perslow. There's also a fight going on at this time as well, up for 7th place, Ogun versus Mantinho. We'll go and catch on board with those 2 in just a moment's time. We see here starting to boil away from that fight of 12, Andres Tishavari on board with Robert Ogun, a driver who has been routinely swamped in by his contemporaries. It's been a tough fight for him so far, but he's holding on with every fibre of his being and stays up ahead of Mantinho for the time. Friedman now moves up to 2nd place as Kieran Rodd is on his exit. So as it would stand then, Will Friedman is only about 19.5 minutes from a possible race win today. as it would stand then for Friedman, having a look back through the last season's worth of races where he was deployed towards the very end of it, if memory serves correctly. Looking back through that season, still finds himself without a win on those charts. Those last 4 rounds were dominated by another Ford, that being Fake Galaxy back in season 10. Friedman then looking at the cusp of his first race win. Actually, hang on, you'll have to give me a moment here. Yes, it would be the case that we are gunning for a first victory here for Friedman. The last 2 races were won by Carlos Disch. Mysteriously enough, a no-show from this race. .5 minutes left to go. Looking on with some more fighting here among the field. We see recently then Tishafari's now up and ahead of Wayne Trigg, who now has to deal with Lewis Perslow, challenging for 13th place. In terms of Ogun v Mantinho, we see them out through turn 8. The Aston's still holding ground here over the Ferrari. So looking to catch on board with some of these drivers we see here with Robert Ogun. Bit of a wide run of things there down through turn 13, now to turn 14. Wider still there for Mantinho behind. The Aston Martin will stay in command of 7th for the time being. Having a look in with some of the other fights among the field right now, we see Evans v Barlow still ongoing as it would stand then. The Mercedes some 0.9 of a second away as we exit turn 15. On board here with Tom Barlow, we see the Mercedes going out onto the banked surface of the track, the Brickyard circuit as it's known, a little bit earlier than previously anticipated. Faster in the last lap though, it definitely does give us one clear indicator. Barlow's time in 9th place is possibly numbered. You see then with Tom Barlow, he is quickly being approached by the 44, and this could very well scope up to be the battle of 9th place coming up just around the corner between Lee Evans and Tom Barlow. Down through to turn 6 they go. We'll catch on with them in due course. Taking a look that Tyler Vermaak is now into the pit lane. So for Will Friedman, he's 2 corners away from leading here in Indianapolis, where he started towards the back of this field. Albeit not from last. That would be for Vermaak, who started from the pit lane. Nonetheless, across the line then goes Will Friedman up into the lead here in Indianapolis. 16.5 minutes to the line. The ball's in his court, and it's time to play then for the 208 for a possible first ever VSR victory for Will Friedman. Vermaak's on his exit. Oates is up to 2nd. Rod's up to 3rd. Davies at 4th. Angeletta looking at a possible 5th. That could very well likely be the case here with that very long run down pit road here. So then it falls onto the case of Mantinho and Ogun over a possible 6th and 7th increase from 7th and 8th presently. With Vermaak still approaching his exit here, he does lose out position to Ogun and Mantinho, so we'll be chasing them from behind to make threes company in this encroaching fight now for 6th place between Aston Martin and Ferrari. Looking here, Barlow v Evans wrapped up as quickly as predicted then, with Barlow having dropped down towards 10th place. Evans descended upon him there in the 44 off screen and now moves up to 9th. Trigg v Perslow, currently 6/10ths apart from one another. Ferrari and Mercedes head to head for 13th place. Looking back in though with this fight here, one of the closest among the field right now, Ogun v Mantinho for 6th. Looking to catch on board here with the attacking angle of things. We've watched on for plenty of times here with Robert Ogun, but on board with Mantas Mantinho now, the attacking angle of this fight for 6th place. It's worth pointing out, keep an eye on that gap in your bottom left-hand side there, the gap between the 26 and the 888. Tyler Vermack, who we saw moments ago leaving the pit lane, drops in behind these two, and it's going to start reeling them in over the course of the next couple of laps. It's yellow flags out down at, by looks of things here, down at turns 13 and 14. That is for the 44 of Lee Evans, likely in his case to continue fighting with Tom Barlow, has ran into trouble there. So we see them now drop in behind Barlow and, by looks of it there, Sean McNally. We'll catch on with those two in a moment's time. We see here, just as we catch back on with the 26 of Mantinho, he's on the inside, now up and ahead as we round turn 5. The Aston Martin possibly to look at the inside at turn 6, but dropping in behind goes Robert Ogan. Mantas Mantinho up to 6th place as we're back into green flag conditions here. 13 minutes left to go, just shy of 14 here in Indianapolis. Now we're looking to catch on ball. Hang on a second here. We see trouble for Ryan Castle down at turn 15. Just as we catch there with the McLaren. Not sure what spurred it on at this time. Having a glance in then with Barlow v McNally. About a second between the pair. So we see here with Sean McNally. We see, though, a bit deep onto the brakes into turn 13. And he dives there. The number 4 drops position out to Barlow. So down into the 10th place goes McNally. Barlow advances to 9th. What's going on with McNally's steering? Something's not right over the back end of the car. Before it was maybe the steering up front there, but no. Something is clearly awry over the rear axle, not the front. Meanwhile, another yellow flag out at the moment. The number 29 is in trouble. Looking to catch on. We'll see here from the 208's point of view what's going on there for Wayne Trigg. We see the Ferrari is back up and running. Now on his run down towards turn 13 and 14. Green flags back out again. 12 minutes left to go here. And for this one, that's the scope of about some 7 or 8 laps before the end of this race here in Indianapolis. We see from in front of him, Timo versus Trigg. Another yellow flag out. This time, I believe, for Agaverdi in the 717 down at turn 6. Meanwhile, we see here from Will Friedman lapping out past Timo with Trigg in his sights. So since his slip up down at turn 14 and 15, McNally now having dropped 1.8 seconds away from Tom Barlow in the number 23. He advances to 9th place. But it is worth catching on board here if we can get the opportunity. With this fight we're seeing here between Alessandro Brancalini and Lewis Purslow. But we also really want to get on board as well with Tyler Vermack, as he is backed onto this fight with a 96 at this time. And things are looking to get very, very interesting very, very shortly. We see, though, for Brancalini, one of the new blood on the block here in the 15. Really giving a great challenge over to Purslow. Those two were very close on the run-in through Sector 2. Now as they enter Sector 3 here on the exit of Turn 12. And Ferrari doesn't show any signs of going away anytime soon. More on that in a moment. Rod versus Oates is back in question here, this time for 2nd place. BMW and Mercedes, the two that led this race for the longest time, now play second fiddle to the advance to the front of the fields there for Will Friedman. We see Ian Oates run very deep there through turn 8 into turn 9 and 10. The number 61 glued to his rear end, but can't make any moves there until we get down towards turn 13. Glancing in here to see that Vermack is now ahead of the 96. So we were swiftly trying to get on board here, but sadly having missed the move that put Tyler Vermack to 7th. Robert Ogan drops to 8th. Next in Vermack's iron sight is going to be Mantas Mantinho in the 26 Ferrari, but back on board with the furthest fight up the field, and that's the 2nd place here, Oates versus Rod. Rod's got a very good chance here down the opening straight to close that distance down. We see then Rod looking for the inside, backs out of it, tried to fake out a move there for Oates, and it very nearly succeeds for him. Side by side, a moment of contact in through turn 2, muscled out there as things get a little bit hairy between the 61 and the 6, keeping his way to the inside, down at turn 4. Kieran Rod trying for second here over Ian Oates, looks to be up and ahead by the time we hit turn 5, and that he is. What's the counter attack though by Mercedes, looking for a possible move on the inside at turn 6, can't find ground of it. Kieran Rod up to second. Albeit it was a bit of a scuffed move there. We saw what the intention was though. Got inside the number 6's head and is now running rings around him through sector 1 as now the number 61 advances to second. Back on with them in a moment, checking in here with the aftermath of the move by Vermaak against Ogun. We see that Vermaak has quickly moved on to set his sights now on Mantas Mantinho. More on that in a moment as we take a look in here with what was previously one of the closer fights we now see has since advanced outward for Alessandro Brancalini, now to 13th place ahead of both Alfie Pryor and Lewis Perslow, owing to what could very well have been a yellow flag incident we didn't catch sight of. But as we've seen down in that last 3 corners, very easy for drivers to run a little too far over the line and drop several positions. We've seen that already on a few occasions in this race. For Oates v Rod, that's now 3/4 of a second, and Oates is flagging there in the number 6. He's dropping a lot of time in that Mercedes as the BMW continues to advance sort of up road there. We see in the background, fight here for 17th, or in the foreground, I think more relevantly there. Up the inside, Peter Mikolas on Wayne Trigg. The 2 Ferraris head-to-head. Great move there by Mikolas. Up to 17th place he goes in the number 11. So with 8 minutes left to go, this is the current scope of the field then here in round 3 before we get to the checkered flag. This is, of course, all subject to change, but right now as it stands, Will Friedman in the lead, Kieran Rod in second. In 3rd place, Ian Oates. In 4th, Chris Davies. Antonio Angeletta rounds out the top 5. We see recently they're now to 6th ahead of Mantas Mantinho goes Tyler Vermaak. Mantinho to 7th, Robert Ogun to 8th with Tom Barlow in 9th. Sean McNally rounds out the top 10 by a thinning margin as you see behind him there. And we'll stay on board with these two as we continue to recount the rest of the field. Is Lee Evans and the 44 Mercedes down through to turn 1. These two goes. We stay on board with the defending of 2. On board here with McNally. So further down through the field, 12th place for Andres Tishavari, 13th for Alessandro Brancalini. Meanwhile, we see there looking at the inside is Evans on McNally. The 2 Mercs head-to-head here for 10th place. Round turn 5 and a turn 6 they go. McNally holding the inside. What is his chances, though, to hold off the 44? Way later on the brakes goes Evans. Up and around the outside at turn 6. So as it stands then, your recent shift, Evans to 10th, McNally to 11th. We'll stay on board with these two, though, as we recount the rest of the field. Brancalini 13th, Pryor 14th, and Perslow in 15th. Timo 16th, Trigg in 17th, Castle 18th, Pumarol 19th, and Agaverdi in 20th. You see sliding his way out of turn 15, Mantas Mantinho with Ferrari dropping more time away from Tyler Vermaak. We see in that last lap there, the two separate by 1.1 seconds, roughly. And in the time since his move for second, Kieran Rod now makes 1.5 seconds up over Ian Oates on the exit of turn 7. On lap 32 here in Indianapolis, 5 minutes coming up on left to go. Will Friedman above and beyond the call of duty here. That 2:08 started towards the back of today's grid and is now leading the charge of it. And I said back in the World Series that we may never see a recovery drive quite like the one we saw from Rafael Bayer with Lamborghini. Well, taking a look on board with that Mustang, I think we have a new face of recovery drives here on TRTN, the 2:08 of Will Friedman. No mountain high enough, no valley too low then for the 2:08. Making his way back down towards turn 1 on lap 33 here in Indy. 5 minutes left to go. We see here very close action. Wayne Trigg versus Ryan Castle. These are the two bronze cars going head to head here. Down through turn 15. We'll stay on board with Trigg. watching over then that fight as it stands then for 17th between the pair, Ferrari and McLaren, looking to possibly go head-to-head down through as early as turn 1. We see the 77 pumps the brakes, though, for the run into turn 1. The 29 stays up in the lead of this fight for 17th place. Out through turn 2, 3, and 4. Again, looking his way up the inside, there goes Ryan Castle. You can see on the radar at the top of our screens there, just from the third-person view from Wayne Trigg, just how close the McLaren is willing to tow things here. On the exit of turn 7, has now got a bit of a run of it down towards turn 8. Better of the two for exit. So you see him close the distance in under slipstream. But sadly, they're forced to the outside. What's the chances here for Trigg to hold position as he... Oh, where did they go? Where on earth did Wayne Trigg plan upon going there? There's going... very, very late on the brakes, and then there's that. Get a glance here. This caught us completely off guard as, whoop, off he goes. What a bizarre change of form there. Happens to the best of them, though. Just ran way too late onto the brakes. Tunnel visioned in on trying to defend. Couldn't focus on the road in front of him. 3.5 minutes left to go. We see Chris Davies is advancing on Ian Oates. This is worth pointing out here. Davies hunting down the gold division win. Now, to get us back on the subject of division leads, in the platinum category is Will Friedman. In the gold category, you can see here very thinly divided right now for that lead is Ian Oates. It could possibly be Chris Davies as we're about to enter here from looking on board with these two, staying on with Ian Oates, currently in defense of the gold lead in the overall fight for third place. Then your silver division lead is Antonio Angeletta, and your bronze division lead is Mantas Mantinho. At one point in this race, all 4 of those division leads were in the top 4 positions outright on this grid, and it was a fantastic sight then. Now we see, as push comes to shove here in Indy, 2.5 minutes left to go. This race has been all manner of confusing so far. Of course, was originally slated to be a 75-minute race. That was as per the calendar. Then a last-second change to put this at what is now 60 minutes of racing has left us all out of tune here, but nonetheless, it has still made for very exciting racing here in round 3. Oates v Davies then to consider. We'll go to catch on board here with Chris Davies now on the attacking end of this fight for third place. On board then with Davies. And this is going to be one of the more frustrating parts of this performance for him, is the fact that the Ferrari has got so much to give in the corners, but on this opening straight, struggles to keep pace with that 6.3 litre V8 in the Mercedes in front of him. Meanwhile, we're not long from starting the final flying lap, courtesy of the 208. Meanwhile, there is also a yellow flag out for Agaverdi at this time, down at turn, I believe that is turn 10. So we're rapidly approaching the scene of it here. Chris Davies leaps for the inside off of that of Ian Oates. But it's all for nil there as he finds himself tucked back in behind. We see that Mercedes is all manner of slippery here in the middle sector, struggling to keep the back end in line with the front. This could get very, very greasy on this final flying lap here for the Mercedes. So we see there the leader has started their last flying lap here in this race. Drive through for speeding in the pit lane for the number 77. I believe is for Ryan Castle. It's all or nothing now for Chris Davies. This is for a gold division win here in round 3. Right in front of him then, Ian Oates, the division lead for gold. Looking for the inside. Isn't going for it too early, but wanted to get inside the number 6's head, force him into an early defense. Meanwhile, Parvis Agaverdi in front, in more trouble there as he rejoins just in alongside these two, very nearly in front of them. Had that been only a second earlier. Watching in down through to turn 6. Davies versus Oates here. This is for the fight of the lead for gold. Not far from the line then. We'll be catching on board with the 208, who's not long then from joining the history books for his first ever win here in VSR. As we cut onto the big screen here, looking for the inside once again, goes Chris Davies, and it's contact between himself and Ian Oates. A controversial end to their fight for the gold lead as we go back on board now with Will Friedman as he rounds turn 14, now to turn 15, well above and beyond the call of duty. No mountain high enough, no valley too low for the 208 from the back of the field to a race win here in Indianapolis. What a drive by Friedman here in the 208, second to none. Kieran Rodd then not long from the line, and as it would appear for the 61, he's about to see second place here, both in division and outright. A very solid drive there for the number 61. We see coming to the line after the talk of the platinum win, making his way to the line then, Ian Oates, having survived long enough on this grid there, soldiers things through to a gold division win. From behind him then, approaching the line, comes the silver number 1 here. Antonio Angeletta takes the silver division win. Then across the line we see, making his way down, the number 26. This is for the last of the division wins here in round 3 of the championship. It's Mantas Mantinho on his way to the line in the number 26. He wins in bronze. A solid bout of driving across all fronts here in what has been a war zone of a track that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Brickyard giveth and the Brickyard taketh away. Will Friedman then reveling in victories today. The 61 celebrating his second place up and ahead of Ian Oates. A brilliant fight throughout today for the number 61, celebrating with a spot of drifting there. Ian Oates back into the pit lane, holding on to his gold win. Antonio Angeletta for his silver win. We see Chris Davies back into the pits, rather remorseful of how things unfolded in that last lap. Tyler Vermack, 6th place. Mantas Mantinho in 7th. Robert Ogan in 8th. Lee Evans 9th. And Tom Barlow rounds out that top 10. We see across the line there goes the number 15 of Brancolini. So looking at the full result of things there, Sean McNally in 11th. Brancolini in 12th. And as it would stand then, Tishavari to 13th, Pryor 14th, Perslow 15th, Timo to 16th, Trigg 17th, Pumerol 18th, Castle 19th, Agaverdi 20th, and Michaelis in 21st. So seeing the full results there, your 4 division winners: Will Friedman in platinum, Ian Oates in gold, Antonio Angeletta in silver, and Mantas Mantinho in bronze. In the overall standing then, Will Friedman wins here in Indianapolis, Kieran Rodd 2nd, Ian Oates 3rd, and Antonio Angeletta in 4th. Chris Davies rounds out the top 5 with Tyler Vermack in 6th place from a pit lane start. Brilliant stuff there as well for the Triple Eight, worth mentioning. Mantinho 7th, Ogan 8th, Evans 9th, and Barlow rounds out the top 10. McNally in 11th, Brancolini 12th, Tishavari in 13th, Pryor 14th, Perslow 15th, Timo 16th, Trigg 17th, Pumerol 18th, Castle 19th, and Agaverdi in 20th place. Just outside the top 20 there, we see Peter Michaelis and Mr. Burney 21st and 22nd, a DNF for the 196 here in round 3 of season 11 of VSR. Taking a look at where we'll be next week, then heading into April 8th, 2026. We head to round 4 of the championship at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari for 60 minutes of racing then over at the Imola circuit. 20 minutes of qualifying, much of the same of what we saw today, but no current prediction on what weather may entail. It's been nice and dry here in Indianapolis. That cannot be a guarantee then heading to Italy next week. Then we're back in the United States 2 weeks from now over in Schuyler County, New York State on the 15th of April at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. 1 hour and 20 minutes of racing coming up at the season midway 2 weeks from now. That's all from us here on TRTN. Our next broadcast comes up this Friday, another round coming out of season 4 of MSE's GT3 series. More to follow then into the weekend. Until then, that's all from us. Take care. Good night.